to kind of cut a long story short, 12 months later, I was cash flowing $14,000 a month. And I got myself out of, that hard situation, and in a much better situation where I was now, kind of reached the point of passive income and financial freedom within a single year. So it's just a crazy story, but powerful, and goes to show how powerful the Airbnb space can be.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cashflow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. I'm so glad to have you back listening to the show or watching, if that's what you're doing, because, of course, we put it on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. But whatever your channel, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. We got a great guest today, Quentin West from beautiful, we call it the Blue Basketball State, North Carolina. And I'm excited because we're about 4 weeks away from the big NCAA annual tournament kickoff. Every year, Quentin, my 10 best friends and I get together at a beach house, 10-bedroom beach house in Sandridge, right over the state line in Virginia, to do the kickoff tournament. It's just
that's awesome.
Now we're old. Yeah, we still like in college, and it's 40 years later, and we still haven't grown up, But
oh yeah,
it's amazing.
Oh,
so
great.
Speaking of the place course is a short-term rental. So in any case, first of all, thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate this,
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Gary.
You got it, man. So everybody listening, this is definitely one you want to take notes on. If you're driving, don't worry, you can re-listen. We'll also have show notes for you. But just pay attention to this one because it's a timely subject. We haven't had it for a while. There are changes around the country, around the world. And that Airbnb is big and strong and fast, and it's charging forward, and you should be part of it. So Quentin, excuse me. First of all, what was the tipping point, I guess, that got you into this? Were you already investing in something else and then decided to try this, or take us back to how you got started, if you don't mind,
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually a pretty crazy story. Believe it or not, I never intended for Airbnb to be a business. So I think I was 21 at the time. This was in 2019. And I had purchased a house a few months prior to quitting my job. And I decided to get my real estate license. Actually, I was an EXP agent as well for a couple years. And about 3 months into having my license, I didn't make any money. And I had this house that I was paying a mortgage on every month. And obviously at 21, you don't have a ton of cash. So I found myself in between a rock and a hard place. I had to make a decision to either sell the house in a lower market where I owed more on the house than it was worth, or try to rent it out, and I didn't really know how to do that either. So one of my friends told me, "Why don't you try Airbnb?" I was like, okay, well, the house is furnished anyway, so let me move back in with mom and dad. I'll put it on Airbnb, and maybe this will float me by for a couple months while I get back on my feet. And the first month, I profited $1,000. The second month, I profited $1,500. And by the third month, I realized this was something I needed to pay more attention to. And so for the next 12 months, I spent every waking hour, every extra dollar that I had. I learned about business credit. I learned about a creative strategy called Airbnb arbitrage, where you can rent a property and sublease it on Airbnb. And to kind of cut a long story short, 12 months later, I was cash flowing $14,000 a month. And I got myself out of that hard situation, and in a much better situation where I was now kind of reached the point of passive income and financial freedom within a single year. So it's just a crazy story, but powerful, and goes to show how powerful the Airbnb space can be.
Yeah, I tell you what, it started a long time ago. People don't realize how long Airbnb has been around. It's just they only went public several years ago, so it wasn't like a everyday common household name until they went public, and boy, did they go public. Holy smokes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Airbnb, it went from, now it's, of course, international, world, global, business. And it's a new industry. I mean, it's a new category, excuse me, in an existing industry. And whenever that happens, the first guy in just makes there's nobody can catch up. It'd be 100 years before somebody can catch up.
Oh
So,
yeah.
in any case, we love it. I mean, we teach this too, and we've got investors and 30 different countries, 13 countries actively doing this now, and a lot of it's in the U.S. They invest in the U.S. and sometimes their own country. Um, we have the agents that are trained to work with them, and we understand long-term rentals, short-term rentals, and mid-term rentals. And short-term is how it all got started with Airbnb. Typically, like destination areas, Orlando, the beach towns. But what people don't realize is how prolific it is now. And I'll give you up. I'm going to turn it back to you in a second. I spent 25 years in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's not known as a destination town. There's no beach. You're not close to the mountains. You're an hour and a half to the nearest mountains for skiing and so forth. But it's a pretty good business center, right? They've got higher education, high tech, finance, big hospital systems. They've got 3 major sports teams, a couple of major universities. That's a lot of activity, festivals, weddings. I mean, it just goes on and on. So, would you mind touching on that a little bit? Because I want people to really have a bigger, broader perspective of how prolific it can be with Airbnb. Because when you think of the audiences, it's like staggering what the possibilities are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love what you just said because I started in a very rural market. My hometown has 25,000 people. And when I first started telling people I was doing Airbnb, they're like, what? And, Kernersville, Winston-Salem, North Carolina,
Yeah.
how are you making money? And, the truth is you don't have to find a place in a, huge city or a hot vacation spot. We teach a method called the Golden Triangle. So essentially how the Golden Triangle works is you find a point in the middle of 3 separate major attractions that are all within 30 minutes apart. Within doing that, whether it's the mountains or a beach spot, or it could just even be like Busch Gardens, family attraction, you have a lot of inflow of traffic going back and forth between these locations and even other states. And then you have, like you were saying, people going to weddings and just visiting family, corporate travelers. So you really want to look for the traffic first and not so much focus on the major cities, because even in some cases, a major city might be much less profitable than a rural market because your expenses are much higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, permitting and rules and regulations and everything.
Absolutely.
That's
Extra
why
taxes.
Yeah, yeah. I live in the wilderness now. We have our own water, our own,
Yep.
Septic tank and drain field. The only bill we have is electric,
Yep.
you know,
I'm there
so
with you.
because there's no gas out here, but it's just amazing. So, well, I tell you what, I know something probably more recent, and I don't know a whole lot about it within the context of Airbnb, although I know Airbnb started offering this, was we started noticing a big uptick in midterm rentals. And it was kind of coincidental with the pandemic. I mean, not really exactly. It was going on before that. But what we noticed is the audience. We realized, people, the movie industry, they would come make a movie in some town that's not Hollywood. It's like Atlanta
Yep.
or again, Pittsburgh or Baltimore, and they didn't want to be in a hotel. They had a lot of people, man. There's like hundreds of people involved in the movie production. So they would go out and canvas and grab up all the Airbnb spaces for 3, 6, or 9 months,
Yep.
the oil and gas industry, oil and gas. I mean, high tech, traveling nurses, business executives, business managers, sports teams, sports and entertainment coming in for spring training. The guys get signed with the Baltimore Ravens, but they're not from Baltimore. So they get a place to live in for the 6 months of the season. Can
Yep.
you touch on that a little bit and maybe distinguish between short term and midterm so people really understand the difference, and what are some of the offerings and anything you can share, because it is, for my audience, they still sort of new. They've heard about it, some of the doing, but it's not fully understood like short term.
Yeah, absolutely. So midterm rental is typically a 30-day or longer rental. Once you get up towards a year, it can be counted as a long-term rental. But we do a lot of midterm as well. So something that I learned my second year in the business is, after getting connected with some corporate rental companies and insurance companies, is there is a major market for these types of people. And we actually had a movie production company I believe this was my third year, booked two of our houses in Charlotte, North Carolina at the same time. They paid us upfront in full, $40,000 check for two properties we had less than $15,000 each in. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty incredible opportunity. We use it now as like a hybrid strategy. So we'll have our short-term rental pricing for our peak season where we attract as many people as possible and just try to fill vacancy and get the highest nightly rate that we can. And then in our slow season where there is less of a guest pool that is available, we'll use a midterm rental strategy where we optimize our pricing to attract more long-term guests so that we can kind of separate ourselves from the 1 and 2 and 3 night stays and keep the 1, 2, 3 week or even monthly stays on our calendars. And that allowed us to go from about 40% occupancy in our slow season to 70% plus on average, because we have some properties that are 100% occupied during slow season. And
Nice.
after making over $1 million at this point with midterm, I've found that this is the most lucrative strategy. You can utilize this in your slow season, especially in a rural market. Maybe in a vacation area, it won't be as effective just because the insurance company is probably not going to rent a beach house for someone unless they lived in a beach house prior to that. But it's allowed us and our clients to make much more revenue and profit in our slow season than what we used to in years past.
Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live. Be ready to take notes and ask questions because it's live and engaging, and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to realestatewithgarywilson.com, click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care. Well, let's kind of wrap this a little bit further. So when it comes to the difference in rates, let's take one of your, I guess do you have some multifamily and some single family homes in your portfolio mix? Are they all singles or?
We have some small multi. So we have like upstairs, downstairs duplex, but we don't have any 5 units or above. We don't have any large multi yet.
Gotcha. Well, let's take one of the either duplex or single family. What would you project would be a normal rent for a long-term, typical young couple with a dog and a child? What would be a typical midterm rental rate, and what would be a typical short-term rental rate, like over a weekend, so people can kind of see the difference here,
Yeah, so our average property, and this might sound crazy to some people in like California and other states, but our average rent for our arbitrage properties is around $1,600 a month. That's what we're paying long-term in rent. Those properties on a short-term rental market will make anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000 a month in gross revenue. With midterm, we'll typically take around $3,000 to $3,800, maybe a little bit more if we get an insurance client. But the great thing is, even though we're making less gross revenue for the most part, we are netting more because we don't have to clean the property 5 to 8 times a month. So instead of paying all that money out to a cleaner, we're just pocketing the difference. We may clean once a month if we think it's a guest that may need additional cleaning, like a construction crew, like that may be a guest where you want to clean once a month to make sure they're not, tearing up the house and walking through the place with muddy boots. But most guests, we don't need to stay on top of them like that. And, 6 months later, they move out, normal wear and tear on the house. We may do some touch up with repainting, maybe deep cleaning the carpet, but we're good to go. And we made typically twice as much profit as we would in a short-term rental. So if we can fill our properties 24/7 with midterm, then I would say go all midterm, but it's not consistent enough, in my opinion, where you can do
Yeah.
that unless you really have some deep connections in the industry.
Yeah. It definitely, I like I like the fact that you have a blended approach to it. And one of the things, another thing I like about the midterm rentals is generally they're like business travelers. They're not coming with their kids and dogs. They're coming by themselves. And oftentimes they fly back home on the weekends where they came from, like Washington, D.C. or something.
Yep.
And little wear and tear. Sometimes the company they're contracting with will pay the rent for them. Like you said
Yep.
up front, it's just so many benefits and so fewer headaches that you get with the typical long-term rentals. I mean, it's just, um, so Airbnb itself, the actual application, uh, describe to us the functionality. Like how do you um, market to the short-term rentals? How do you switch from short-term rental advertising to midterm? Is it all done through Airbnb, or is there a different part of Airbnb, or how does that work? I guess
Yeah, so you can do it through Airbnb with rule sets and discounting within your pricing, and trying not to overcomplicate this too much. I'll try to explain it, but
Okay.
essentially, what you want to try to do is increase your single nightly rate and add more aggressive discounts the more dates that they add on. So let's
Uh,
say that you want to be at $150 a night on average, then you want to increase the price enough where when you add your discounts on a 10-night stay, your average nightly rate is $150 a night. So you may start at $300 a night and add aggressive discounts up to 10 nights. And by doing this, if you get shorter term stays, you get paid much more for them. So
yeah.
it helps you out. But more often than not, you're going to see more longer term guests book because it's Airbnb's algorithm is going to show your property to more people because of your discounting. It's going to show that you have 20, 30% discount. And so that's going to give you a slight bump in the algorithm and show you to more people that are looking for a long term stay.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, Now, have you used any other online platforms in addition to Airbnb, like specifically address midterm rentals, or other short term venues, or sorry, um, uh, I guess channels.
Yeah, so we use VRBO as well. On some
Okay.
properties, we'll use like Google Travel or Booking.com. But typically, if you have a really optimized listing, then you don't need that many channels.
Yeah.
A lot of these property management companies, they're pitching the fact that they can get you on 9 channels. But what they don't say is that most of their bookings come from Airbnb and VRBO, and they may get one every 6 months from one of the other ones.
Mhm.
And oftentimes that date would have gotten booked anyway on Airbnb or VRBO. So
Right.
it's more of a marketing tactic than anything, in my opinion, from these big management companies. And most of the
Mhm.
time, if you are optimized and you're doing what you should be doing and what we teach within marketing, you'll have no problem booking up your property on just 2 channels.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. And you know, Airbnb. It's the reason one of the reasons I like them is because they're so well established. They've been around long enough. They've seen all the things that cause gray hair, and they know how to address them. So let's kind of switch gears just a little bit. Speaking of gray hair, so what are some of the things you heard people mention, like from a frame of reference, like they have fears and doubts about short term Airbnb, and when how do you you know how do you address those fears?
Yeah, so I would say most fears come from a lack of knowledge. They just don't know what they don't know. Some of the biggest ones are, what if I buy this property and it doesn't rent out? So good fear. What if I buy the property, it rents, but I just don't make my monthly nut? What if someone destroys the property? Like all of these things that go through our minds whenever we're considering jumping into a new venture. And a lot of those fears can be combated with just understanding how to run your numbers properly, how to research a market properly, make sure it's legal. Like all of those things are areas where I see people getting themselves in trouble more often than not. They'll already buy the property or have it as a arbitrage unit, and they come to us and we tell them, hey, like we can help you, but the problem is your market is not even legal for Airbnb. So you're going to pay us this money to coach you. And yes, it may work, but you're going to get shut down pretty quickly. So it's really important if you're
Mhm.
considering getting into the short-term rental space to really understand the big picture, to know where to go for legal regulations and if you need any permitting, and then how to run your numbers properly. And,
Mhm.
there's a lot of services and softwares that can help with that. AirDNA is the one that we use most. But even
Mhm.
with AirDNA, there is a small learning curve. You can't just take the
Mhm.
numbers they give you for face value. You have to understand how to run comps correctly and understand what is a comparable and what is not. Because some
Mhm.
people get themselves in trouble just by taking the rentalizer feature for face value when it's including comparables that should never be comparables. We've had
Mhm.
countless students come to us saying, hey, I want to invest in this property. I'm about to pull the trigger, put in an offer tomorrow. And I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, let's look at the numbers together, and we break it apart. And that property that they thought was going to make $100,000 because of the comps that AirDNA grouped together is only looking at about 50 to 60. So they would be losing $10 to $20,000 a year if they started and did everything perfectly.
Mhm.
So I would say that's the area where most people get in trouble.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know when I first discovered AirDNA, one of the first things that struck me is just that their average occupancy rate is only like 30 or 33%. But I know people
Yeah.
personally that have, like you're at 70% plus. I know people that are 95% occupancy because
Yeah.
of their algorithm. They had that place filled up all the time, and they have a
Yep.
website. Actually, the guys back in Pittsburgh, Gustavo. So on his website, he showcases all the upcoming concert, basketball games, hockey games, football games, baseball games, festivals, stuff like that, and what's happening in the college graduation dates. So there's people are coming in to see their kids get their degree from Pitt or Duquesne or Carnegie Mellon or what have you. I mean, he does all of that, and
Yep.
it just in the SEO he gets from that combined with Airbnb. I mean, he's an operator. He doesn't own a thing. He
Yeah.
like I think he does like he does a master lease, gets the rights to sublet. He knows the rules and regulations. He knows what parts of town work, what parts of town don't. Where the regulations are more lenient, things like that. And it's but it if people would just study and learn, like we mentioned in the beginning, education is vital. It'll help you avoid a lot of mistakes. So let's talk about mistakes and errors and things like that. What are some of the things you see Airbnb hosts make, and how do you avoid them?
Yeah. The two biggest problems are not marketing correctly and not being priced correctly. With marketing, you said it yourself, Airbnb went public in the past few years, and they really started
Mhm.
prioritizing professional hosts. And what a professional host is someone that understands from a marketing standpoint what converts, how to analyze your data on Airbnb, looking at your conversion rates, your first page search impressions, like how does all that tick and how can we use it within our listing to leverage the algorithm. And that's really where our bread and butter is, showing people how to take an underperforming listing, how to look at their numbers to know why they're performing how they are, and then use what they currently have or even add something to it to convert at a higher rate. And then the second thing is pricing. With pricing, Airbnb is not just looking for the cheapest property anymore because again, they're optimizing for revenue. So if you are way cheaper than all your competitors, they're likely going to promote someone else ahead of you if you're massively cheaper because their pricing is more in line with what they expect the market to book for.
Right.
So you really have to understand how to price and not just guess on your pricing. We explain it as listing and praying and guessing on your pricing in our presentations because most people are guilty of that. They're taking a couple photos, they're throwing a quick description from Chat GPT on there, and then they're just praying it gets booked.
Yeah, that's interesting. So So probably by now people are wanting to know, how can they get started? And I mean, just like a lot of walks of life. I mean, in real estate, last year, 2024 was the lowest productivity year since 1994. So there's a lot of real estate people, agents, investors, and commercial and so forth that are, they didn't have as good a year as they liked to. It'll turn around, obviously, but a lot of them are looking for things like this as a solution. How can I get involved in real estate from an investor standpoint, or in this case, servicer standpoint? And what can you tell those people? Like maybe they don't have the cash flow they had the years during the pandemic where everybody was just making a killing. But can those people get started in this? And what can you tell them about that?
Absolutely. My first property I owned, but my next property with an arbitrage, I literally had to send myself an invoice and pay it with a credit card just so I could pull out the cash, put it in my bank, and use that for my first month's rent and deposit for my 1st
Mm-hmm.
arbitrage unit. So I came
Yeah.
from no money. And I know how that is. And there's other ways you can get started now as well. There's
Mm-hmm.
co-hosting where you can essentially manage a property for another owner. That takes no money. If you have people in your circle that have properties and trust you to co-host for them, that's a great
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. So it's really identifying what your resources look like now, whether you have some credit or maybe you don't have any credit cards now, but you have a good credit score, learning about business credit, which is something that we can also help with, and then utilizing those resources in the best way possible to scale as quickly as you're comfortable with. Some people
Yeah.
like to scale slowly over time, maybe one property every 6 months or a year. I'm the more aggressive type, but I understand a lot of people don't want to take on that much stress. And if you do this
Yeah.
business correctly, there's really not a ton of stress involved. You can put systems and processes in place so that you're not the one answering all the messages. You're not the one, cleaning the properties and handling maintenance calls like I was in the beginning. But it all starts
Mm-hmm.
with, getting some good education and making sure that, you're equipped with the right skills necessary to not have to do all the work. So either you're going to pay for it in time and in education on the front end, or you're going to pay for it in experience on the back end.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I tell you what. So, by the way, I want to go back to something. So, co-hosting is different. Arbitrage is where you get a property under a master lease agreement, and then you have the right to sublet through Airbnb. And then
Yes.
co-hosting is that where there's no money changes hands. It's just I own it, and you're going to rent it out through Airbnb, and we split the profit with some ratio. Is that, if you can kind of flesh it out a little bit?
Yeah. So there is a little bit of confusion in the co-host space for sure. So Airbnb is the company that coined the co-host
Mm-hmm.
person on their platform. Traditionally, co-hosting and management, you typically need to be licensed in most states because you have a trust account where you manage trust funds, and that way there's no commingling of funds and you can stay within legal bounds. The co-hosting way that we teach is a little bit different. So Airbnb has a great function where they can split money automatically. And the key factor of why you typically need to be licensed is because you are handling someone else's funds. You know that as an agent, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
And so with Airbnb's new feature, that has allowed co-hosts in most states to not need a license, and they can find someone just like you or me that has properties and offer to answer their messages, handle inquiries, manage their pricing, even handling cleaning and maintenance if you'd like. And that way a host that owns the property can kind of take their hands off and focus on growing the business or spending time with family if they have built up a portfolio. So yeah, co-hosting is probably the one thing I'm most excited about in this industry for the next year. We started a co-hosting company last year just as a kind of a test, if you will. And in 3 months, we built it to $10,000 a month in profit. And this year, it'll probably do multiple six figures in profit.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to run out of time here, probably quickly, but I want to uh, unwrap that a little bit more. What you just said about, getting the $10,000 a month. Um, like what are the steps? Like, number one, do this. Number two, do this. And then, how many are we talking a matter of months, or is it a years? Or, I mean, it seems to me like once you get the first one up and running, it's rinse and repeat and, duplicate. But that's just, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so I always,
Yeah.
my vision is do it now, get it now, and you're gonna be, be rich in a day kind of thing. But realistically, what is that for someone literally considering this? What does that look like? The steps and the time frame to hit that mark.
Yeah, so if you wanted to talk about the fastest way to get to $10,000 a month, the way that I would do it, and this is considering if you have zero experience right now, the way that I would do it is take my credit card, learn how to do Airbnb arbitrage, get my first property with arbitrage, get comfortable with the platform, understand how to price, how to analyze markets, how to run numbers, and then start marketing co-hosting services. You absolutely could go straight to co-hosting, but the problem that we found is one, people aren't very comfortable with the platform. There's a lot that they don't know. And when most owners hear that they have no previous experience, that's if you're being honest, which I hope you are, you're not going to be able to pick up many clients because they're not going to trust you to manage their property if you have no experience. So
Right.
what I have found my students are most successful with is when they have at least one property and can use that as a case study to market their services to other owners as a co-host. And to pick up property owners, the best thing that I would do is go to local events, talk about your success with your current property, talk with other owners, even long-term investors. Short-term rentals are very sexy to them, but they may not have the experience or want to dip into that market. If you show them the potential of their properties, and then you also sweeten the deal by showing them how they could get access to capital to fund furniture or even rent furniture to fill the property so that you can manage it for them and show them what you can actually do. I've seen a lot of students be successful within that area.
That's awesome. Well, I tell you what, this has been a great session. Um, is there anything you can think of like final words of wisdom? And it could even be something like uh, philosophical, like something you got from your mom or dad or one of your grandparents or some chance meeting. Maybe you met Robert Kiyosaki at a conference or something and at the water fountain,
Yeah.
So, yep. Could be from your childhood, sports, maybe a favorite teacher or coach. So,
Um, Man, this is a tough one. I would say, the thing that really sticks in my mind is there's no traffic on the extra mile. That's something my dad always told me as a kid, and it rings so true. And anything that you do, if you are just not afraid to go the extra mile, then you will
yeah,
always come out on top.
yeah, I love it. And your dad is awesome for saying that. I have one too. It's very similar. I call it the 5 minute rule. Every day we get distracted. You get a flat tire, a kid needs braces, the dog gets sick, and things happen. But at the end of the day, if all you did was put in 5 more minutes,
Oh,
i.e., the extra mile, send out 5 thank you cards to people, or send 5 text messages, or whatever. Make a post on Facebook. It takes 5 minutes, and you add that up, and you take the 5 minutes times 365. You'd be shocked at how much time that is in a year and how
yeah,
much more you can accomplish, just by doing 5 extra minutes a day. That's not that hard. But really, in business and in life, I mean, I got to tell you that the things that served me well were not my education. I had a degree in computer science. I was the furthest thing away from being a business person
yeah,
or real estate investor. And my mom's family was, you know, W-2 income, paycheck to paycheck. They die broke, that kind of stuff. Or my dad's family was the opposite. So I had this crazy programming going on.
yeah,
Through it all, the thing that remained consistent was just never ever giving up. Do not give up. If you have vision, it's clear enough to you, and that goal is important enough to you. I don't care what happens. I don't care if you break both your legs. You still find a way to hustle that next day, and I
yeah.
promise you, you're going to succeed.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I wish I could coin that some. Maybe that's the way I just said it's perfect. I don't know, but I
Yeah,
wish I
no,
could get in
that was
people's
great.
heads. Yeah, and
That was
just
absolutely
speak
great.
to
I've
them.
got you can't see it, but there's a plaque over here to my right, and it says just one more.
Yeah.
Just one extra rep in the gym, one extra dial if you're cold calling. I used to do a lot of cold calling, door knocking for real estate sales. Just one more. And then after that, just one more. And then you talk yourself into keeping up this momentum over time. And then, everything's like a muscle. You keep working on it, you keep building it up, and then what used to be hard at this level is now the norm. And now you're working on your new level of hard. So I love what you said.
Yeah. Well, listen, Quentin, I really appreciate you doing this. And for all the listeners, I appreciate you listening. We'd love to have you review, especially on this one. I mean, you got to admit, you got some gold nuggets today, guys. So, obviously we're on 30 different channels. Whatever you want to leave a review on, it's up to you, but we just appreciate it. So make the podcast where we'll go around. So we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cashflow podcast. Thanks again, Quentin. And in the meantime, God bless all of you and your loved ones, and we will see you on the next show. Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cashflow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.